don't think Ron Rivera is going to go, hey, our problem's the quarterback. Let's let him sling it. Probably not, my guys. Probably not. What's going on, Monkey Knife Fight fans? I'm Connor Rowntree, joined by our guy from RotoWire. It's Jim Coventry, and we're breaking down Thursday Night Football. Obviously, it's a highlight of my week. Jim, welcome back to the show.
This has been exciting. Another Thursday night. Look, we don't care if the game's not a great game. We're going to make it a great game.
Yeah, well, I'm a Bears fan, so I'm all in, baby. I'm all in. But like, just speaking of being a Bears fan and how bad of fan choices I make, I'm a Blue Jays fan, so I went to the Blue Jays playoff game, saw the collapse live. And then, you know what? That was the final straw. I've been a Leafs fan. I'm a Bears fan. The Jays let me down. All my teams seemed to choke. So I traded my postal code for a zip code. I moved down to Buffalo for Sunday, and I got to watch the Bills absolutely spank the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got to see what it was like to live in a winning town, but it was Buffalo. So when I got back to Toronto, I felt back at home. I won't lie to you, but it was good to see a winning team play, Jim.
Yes.
Good to see a winning team. The Chicago Bears tonight, they have an opportunity. They are hosting the Washington Commanders. The first time these two teams are playing since 2019. Well, the two franchises, obviously, the Commanders and Bears have never faced. And yeah, Jim kind of said it. This game stinks. It's not one that you're going to be wanting to hit the over on. It's not one you're going to be wanting to rush to the window to. However, there are some positives, and I think it's actually going to be a very fun game. We saw Justin Fields play his best game in the NFL last week, rushing for over 40 yards, had a QB rating up over 100. Say what? And now he's going home and he gets a very inferior defense in the NFL. They have a great pass rush, but with that pass rush opens up holes for their quarterback to run. I think this could be a fun game for Justin Fields. And on the other side, you have the Commanders. Ron Rivera just calling out Wentz last week. That was hilarious. The quarterback. It was a Bill Belichick line, but from Ron Rivera. And then we had Brian Robinson. He returned after being shot to many men. Pretty cool. If you can just get on Twitter and watch that like 10-second clip that the Commanders released on their Twitter, I recommend it. It was pretty awesome. But I mean, Jim, what are you looking for heading into Thursday Night Football?
So the Bears are 2-3. They win in a monsoon at home against the Niners, another home win against the Texans. The Texans just tried to keep giving them that game. So they got a couple wins. Commanders 1-4. Week 1, they had that crazy game with the Jaguars, and then 4 straight losses. They're 0-2 on the road. We talk about how teams approach, and I know we'll get a little more into this, but both teams are very poor defensively right now. And I think both teams, when it goes their way, they prefer to not have their quarterbacks throw. They would prefer to run the ball for different reasons, different situations. That hasn't always happened, but we're going to break this down and get into the details on that in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And let's jump right into it. The passing lines for Carson Wentz, 225.5. Justin Fields, 165.5. And I think let's just start off with Justin Fields. I think that's an attackable line. I mean, from a main defensive stats standpoint, the Washington Commanders rank 26th or worse in every single category. Rushing defense, passing defense, yards per game, points per game, first downs, like all those major stat categories, 26th or worse. And their speciality, if you will, is that pass rush, as I alluded to earlier. And if Justin Fields gets through that and outside the pocket, and those receivers get open downfield, I think the more is attainable here at Soldier Field. That may be a Bears fan talking in me. So Jim, settle me down if I'm wrong.
So here's what I've seen. I made a prediction 2 weeks ago that in each of the last 2 games, the Bears' opponents had defenses that could decide to stack the box and make Justin Fields beat them. And for the last weeks, Khalil Herbert, he was a big DFS play 2 weeks ago, 77 yards, didn't do much. Last week, David Montgomery against the Giants, he got it done in the receiving game. He was stuffed. He had one long run. He broke that one, but other than that, he was like 13 for 30. So I would believe the Giants did their job, and both teams have gone with that blueprint. So we can't extrapolate that blueprint to this game, though. Both of those teams had the ability to stack the box because they could still cover a little bit on the back end. Washington can't do that. Washington doesn't, they're not good at either part of defense, run or pass. So they've got to play this game straight up. And we've learned from the Bears in the first 2 weeks of the season, if a defense plays them straight up, they are going to throw the ball less than 20 times. It's going to be about 17 passing times, and they're going to run Montgomery until they don't have to. And they're going to be successful all night. They are not throwing the ball in this game. So that's why I'm going less.
Yeah, I mean, I completely see it. And what I was kind of alluding to was Justin Fields' rushing line again.
Yes.
That's coming in on Monkey Knife Fight at 39.5 yards. He rushed for over 40 yards last week. I like him to smash that line. I think that is really that is kind of my best bet in the quarterback perspective, if you will, is the Justin Fields rushing prop on Monkey Knife Fight coming in at 39.5. As I said, I like them more on that one. Jim, if you want to chime in on that.
Yes, I'm sorry. I got a little off on that one, but I cover this as well. So in the running game, we even go back to last year. I know it's a little bit different of a defense, but they're very similar to what Washington was. Jalen Hurts has played them a few times. He had 23 yards earlier this year. He had last year a 38 and a 44. And this is Jalen Hurts, big running quarterback. The only quarterback that had like a bigger game than 44 last year, Cam Newton, had a 46. Now, so Washington hasn't been getting torched. The number for Fields is 39.5, which is decent. Now, Fields has run for 47 to 52 in the last 3 games. But as I mentioned, when I broke down from the passing game, he's getting that because defenses were selling out and then they were forcing to beat him in the pass game. And when he rolled out, if there was nothing there, he would run. But as I alluded to earlier, I believe Washington is going to have to let them run. And I don't think that means, I think that means Justin Fields is not going to drop back much, which means the runs may not come. I don't think he's going to run often because he's not going to need to. This game is going to stay close. It's going to be a running game. I don't think it's going to be quarterback driven on either side. I'm saying less.
Yeah, it's that's why we got to play the games, right? I just saw what Justin Fields did last week he had a 50-yard run that was flagged back. He would have had over 90 yards, right?
Yes.
So he can do it on one play, and I genuinely think the opportunity will be there just because of the pass rush. When he does drop back, it only takes one. Now, Carson Wentz, 225.5 yards. That is just tough. It's tough to obtain in this game. Now, people are going to be like, whoa, Connor, what do you mean it's tough to obtain? He's passed for over 300 yards and I think 3 games this season.
Yes.
Garbage time because they were getting slaughtered. He was trying to get back into games. You don't have to worry about chasing in Chicago. Jim already covered it. It's a run attack offense. You don't think Ron Rivera is going to go, hey, our problem's the quarterback. Let's let him sling it. Probably not, my guys. Probably not. I'm taking the less on Carson Wentz. However, look out for Scary Terry. I do think there are some holes in that Chicago's pass defense.
You're absolutely correct on that, Connor. Your analysis is perfect on this one. The coaching staff, Ron Rivera, he's not going to want Wentz to throw unless they absolutely have to. Not going to happen. I mean, the things that point to positives for Wentz is the Bears have no pressure rate. They're the worst in the league per Pro Football Focus. But again, the Bears can't stop the run either. And so Brian Robinson, 9 carries last week, is a little more involved here. You're right. Wentz isn't throwing. This is going less.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to look at it. Now we can kind of get into the more fun lines here with David Montgomery, 62.5 yards. And I think that's going to be a fun one because are we going to get the double dose here of Khalil Herbert and Montgomery? Is it going to be the featured back of Montgomery? Montgomery so poor last week that his average rush per dropped below 4 yards per average rush this season with his performance over the last couple of weeks. So it could be tough. And yeah, I'm going to take the more just based off projected game script, but there could be a dose of Khalil Herbert in there to take away some of that yardage.
So in the last 2 games, Montgomery is seeing upward 75% snatch rate. Last 2 healthy games, he's seen that. And Montgomery, it wasn't his fault last week. And we talked about this earlier. The game plan that I knew that the Giants would take, the Giants, who they played Minnesota last week, I knew they would stop the run. They would load the box and they would force Fields to beat them. And therefore, there were not going to be any running lanes. Minnesota was a good running defense as it was. So we've seen Montgomery blow up against Green Bay. We've seen him have 122 yards, I believe, on 15 carries. When he faced a bad running defense, Montgomery is very, very good. that this week qualifies. The Bears actually have an excellent run blocking line. They don't pass protect well, but they run block well. Montgomery's going to get fed in this game. He probably gets 15 plus touches. Like you, I think he sails over with more yardage here.
Yeah, and then the next two on the screen, I actually would love to talk about in a 1-2 tangent here, because I feel like, you know how you have the horse and carriage, love and marriage, you can't have one without the other. I feel like that's the exact opposite of this situation. If one of these guys goes for more, there's no way in hell the other guy's going for more. If Scary Terry gets 60 yards, that means he's the focal point of Wentz's pass game at last, as he should have been through the whole season, but he's not. RIP Scary Terry fantasy owners. And Curtis Samuel, well, if he gets 6 receptions, then Carson Wentz isn't listening to Coach Rivera, and he's calling audibles at the line, and that's probably his last start of the year. So I'm taking less on Curtis Samuel. As I said before, I think Scary Terry will have opportunities. I'm not sold on that Bears cornerback. I think the safety, I think Jaquan Brisker's come in and done a great job at safety, but until you get to that level of Eddie Jackson and Brisker, there's a lot of holes in that Bears defense, and Scary Terry can burn you off the line. So I'll take more on Scary Terry and less on Curtis Samuel.
We have the same analysis, but different results. I think we're both going to be have some things going for us here. So you mentioned the Bears defense. They're definitely communication issues. 2 rookies in the secondary. They do get Jalen Johnson back, what helps. What offensive coordinator Scott Turner, he's very good at disguising plays. He's the reason Curtis Samuel went from Carolina, where Turner was, to Washington, where Turner is at now. Because what he does, he uses Samuel all over the formation, uses him in motion to kind of determine if you're seeing man or zone. And then he has some very interesting play calls that go to Samuel. So his target distribution has been very high. And Samuel's had 6 or more catches in every game against the Dallas game. And in Dallas, the pass rush for Dallas spent more time in the backfield than Antonio Gibson. It wasn't good. And the Bears don't have a pressure rate. But I think that what Coach Rivera is going to look to do here is, you said this earlier, and you're correct. He doesn't want Wentz to throw. But I think what he wants to do is he wants to get him going on a safe, short, conservative game. They're not going to need to air it out here. So I think Samuel underneath gives him the confidence and the completions, yardage after the catch, that kind of move the sticks. But I think that Rivera realizes if Wentz airs it out, it could get intercepted. It could flip the game. So I'm saying more on Samuel. The Terry McLaurin, that yardage number, it's a trap. Because on the surface, it's an easy win. He's had at least 75 yards, McLaurin has, in 3 or 4 games. And the only game he missed was when Trevon Diggs had that amazing game where he broke up 3 passes and picked off another. And McLaurin is seeing an average of 7 targets over the last 4. But I still keep thinking this game has to be conservative. Both coaches think they can win in this game script. And therefore, McLaurin might get a few catches. I don't think the ball's going downfield. So I'm going to say less.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like all the analysis is really leading towards a run game, and that's what you're sticking to your guns on that in a boring game on Monday Night Football, or on Thursday Night Football, pardon me. But Scary Terry, I just getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage and maybe some screens, some wide receiver screens, and really test those ankles of Jalen Johnson, as you said, coming back from injury. That's a tough position to come back from injury, man. Cornerback, I think, is probably one of the toughest positions to play in all of football. I do not envy cornerbacks whatsoever, but getting into a touchdown dance. Now, I want to apologize to everybody in the world for last Thursday's game. It's not my responsibility. I have no affiliation with the Colts. I have no affiliation with the NFL, for that matter. But that was the worst game I've ever seen in my life. The Broncos suck. Don't put them back on prime time. I've seen them on prime time 3 times, and I'm done. All right. Now that that's out of the way. Touchdown dance. David Montgomery. I think that's realistically your best bet if anybody scores a touchdown, because last Thursday we didn't get one. I said Scary Terry. Look, I think you got to get your playmakers the ball, dynamic playmakers. And then I'm a Notre Dame guy, big Notre Dame guy. And I watched a lot of preseason football for the Bears. And I saw my boy Cole Kmet get open over the middle last week for a big target. Justin Fields feeling himself. I think the Bears are going to win this one at home. The Bears have actually been pretty solid in the red zone this season. And I know that sounds weird, right? But get this. Chicago has 7 touchdowns in 12 trips inside the 20-yard line this season. Washington, as I said, their defense is brutal. I like Cole Kmet to find a little separation in his boy Justin Fields to get him the rock. There's your touchdown dance.
I love that touchdown dance. That's a great chance of cashing. And like last week when there wasn't a single touchdown scored, nobody cashed. I'm with you 100% on David Montgomery. He's got to get in the end zone here. And because of our receiver description, I'm going with Curtis Samuel because I think it could come as a runner, his touchdown. It may not come as a receiver because I think he gets the ball in both ways. And there are some very clever run designs that he's involved in. And my third one, look, primetime game. If they get in the red zone, they have got to get Brian Robinson a touchdown on national TV, even though nobody's watching the game. Brian Robinson is my third one.
You know who? Okay, so here's a cheeky one for you. You mentioned getting Curtis Samuel involved out of the backfield. I weirdly think that J.D. McKissic might be involved. You know, he had no touches as a runner last week, but 7 receptions as out of the backfield as a receiver. I weirdly think that if they go for a change of pace back, that J.D. McKissic, the Bears have been so bad at dealing with the change of pace back. I mean, they kind of kept the Giants in check for most of the game. They injured both quarterbacks, went Wildcat. The Giants drove the field on them with the Wildcat. You change the pace on the Bears, they get hit by a bus. They lose all focus. So I think that could be a cheeky one as well. And then if you could go for the Justin Fields touchdown, I don't think we can use quarterbacks, but I do think Justin Fields could keep it himself. And Jim, any notes on those picks?
I do have a note that you have something in common with Ron Rivera. You both ignored Antonio Gibson. Anyway, that said, look, overall, we talked about it. This is a slow-paced game, a lot of running. Yes, there can be turnovers. I don't know that it matters. Whichever team hits 17 points first wins this game. I'm saying Bears 17-14. I'm going, the biggest one, though, is the under. It's 38.5. I'm going under on this one. I think it comfortably hits the under.
Yeah, I don't see a lot happening. You got 2 teams that are struggling at quarterback play that rush the football a lot. And we've talked about this on this show specifically. And I've made this point before. That leads to the clock ticking and rolling. And that's when those underplays, even when they are below 40 and you're kind of looking at them going, they're still effective. I'm with you on that. And I got a Bears win. I don't know how. I have to take them on an opportunity for the Bears to win. I'm riding with my boys. You know, they were plus a point, minus a point. Now that's a pick 'em, I'm pretty sure. So let's go, Chicago. Let's get something done. Give me some sort of sense of pride from my team so I don't have to go back to Buffalo this Sunday. Yeah. Jim, let the people know where they can find all your great content.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. I'm starting doing these threads every few days right now to go over some trends to help fantasy managers out when they're making their lineups. Also, I'll be on Sirius XM frequently, but on the weekends for sure. Saturday 1 to 3 in the afternoon on the Fantasy Sports Channel, Channel 87. I'm on Sunday mornings 9 to 10 Eastern, and some weeknights I'll have to say check my Twitter and see when those are. I'll substitute in a lot, and always at RotoWire.com.
Perfect. Folks, that's Jim Coventry. I'm Connor Rowntree. Thanks for joining us. Thursday Night Football, Bears and Commanders. Go Bears. We'll see you next week.